So welcome back to the Defiant Spirit podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
If anybody has watched one or the other, they're going to notice we're wearing the same outfits because we're doing a double header. One of the podcasts is about he, she, spirituality, the differences between masculine, feminine, and listen to the podcast. You'll love it. It was great. This one is about the Enneagram. I'm doing a series on the Enneagram. Enneagram, for those who don't know, is an ancient personality roadmap, and I use it as part of my coaching practice, but I also use it in my daily life. And you, Ariela, as my wife, you have picked up on it too. And I would love to hear about why the Enneagram has stuck and how you sort of think about it and how you use it. And then we'll get into your type.
I think for me, at first, I kind of railed against it, like being the four that I am. I don't like to be put in a box. But what I've learned from it is that it helps me understand people and even clients. I can kind of guess now what Enneagram type they are. And kids, our kids, and just in relationships, it helps me see, especially when someone's in stress. I think it releases the judgment and the sometimes anxiety of like when someone's in stress, they really, really act out their number.
Mhm.
And although I know that nobody loves their own number, right? It's hard to be a number. And I know that I'm like educated, so I know that like you're not your number. You are really, the point is to be in the middle and to dance with all the numbers. And I think our son said that the other night. Um, so I've learned to, I think, accept myself a little bit more by understanding like it's not just me, it's how I'm wired at some point. And being a shamanic energy healer, I disagree with some of that. I think some of it is like our big traumas, our little traumas, our ancestral wiring, our upbringing. So I think there's a lot more in there, but it is very helpful to have a better understanding of somebody when you know that they react and respond in a certain way with through these numbers.
Well, it's an important point. The Enneagram is not who you are.
Right.
You are the defiant power of the human spirit. You are beyond label. It's who you're not.
Hmm.
It's where you go to survive. So it's not any different than, what you're teaching people and working through with ancestral traumas or this life traumas. It's it's survival,
Hmm.
right? And when I'm surviving, when I'm in fear, when I'm in, on autopilot, I survive like an eight, a challenger. You have the big eyes. And when you survive like a four, the individualist, the romantic, the
Yes.
artist. So the work is not to survive.
Right.
That's not why we're here. We're here to thrive. So I think it's an important shift that I've seen you make and soften to the Enneagram. Certain types really don't like it. I would say fours, the individualists, and sevens, the enthusiasts, really resist it. Other types, like Yuta, our son, who's an Enneagram one, loves it because
Yeah.
it's structured, and he's a perfectionist, a reformer, and so
Mhm.
it kind of speaks to your type as well. So I don't have a lot of fours who get into it, but you're one of the few fours I know because you're such rarities.
Yes, we are very special. We're
But
very, very unique and creative.
actually, I would imagine, I don't have data on this, that statistically, it's probably the least represented type.
Mm.
It's certainly in our society the most misunderstood type.
Well, I think also because, and I'm sure this is the way it is with all numbers, but I feel like especially a four, I don't know if we'll get into it, but like what's it called? The sexual four or the self-protective four or the social four, right? What are those subtypes?
Sometimes.
I'm really educated. So, like a sexual four is going to look very different than a self preservation four.
Hmm.
And it almost feels like a different world.
Hmm.
And so, I don't know if, like, if you're a two, if you feel that way, or if you're an eight and you feel that way. But when I see like a sexual four versus a social four, I'm not so sure about, but I feel a
Social
big
four is the
difference.
stereotypical four.
Okay.
It's the suffering and it's the most dramatic and
Yeah.
so sexual is the angriest, the most competitive, the most fierce, and your subtype self-preservation is more stoic. It's
Hmm.
the least fourish fours.
Yeah, I mean, that's why to me, like, I see a big difference when I'm up against, and I mean up against a sexual four.
Hmm.
It's like you can really feel that power, and you can also really feel the depth of that four, right? Versus I sometimes think mine is a little bit more gentle, and then I kind of unleash a little bit more because I'm self-protective.
Hmm.
So I don't want to give you all of me, like it, like maybe a sexual four.
Hmm.
So yeah, I've learned that like even within a number, there are different types, and
Totally.
the way we react and respond is very different.
And not only are there different subtypes, which you just named the three subtypes, there's those three in every type. So there's actually 27 subtypes. But then there's different rankings. Like I call it the whole type. You're a four. That's your primary way you move through the world, but you act like an eight at times, right? There's a strength. It's not like that you're an eight, a
Yeah,
challenger, but there's a resolve.
right,
And then you think like a seven, and the seven is the enthusiast, and it's the fast sort of thinker, and ideas and whatever. That's going to look very different than if you were a four, nine, six.
right,
So this thing is nuanced, and we just kind of simplify it, but it doesn't do
right.
it credit.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, I tend to know when I get into my eight. When I get into my eight, it's because I'm really gonna like, I'm gonna go against what you're doing and
Hmm.
I'm gonna show you how to do it. Or when push comes to shove, right? I'm not gonna hide in a box. I'm gonna like bring out the challenger. And I think we probably did that for like a good 3 years living in Israel. um, but I can feel when I'm more of my subtypes
Hmm.
than my four.
So yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too deep for our audience, but it's just really important to understand the sophistication of this thing.
Yeah.
It comes from a spiritual origin story, maybe mathematics, physics, but it's sophisticated. So,
Mm.
that's sort of the big picture of the Enneagram. What I would like to do is, since you are a four, and I'm trying to have somebody who represents each type come on to talk about it, I would love to know what it's like to be a four. Not that anybody can ever
I
understand,
don't
but
know if I can explain it.
so why don't you, since you are knowledgeable, why don't you sort of give a high level view of, four, not the subtypes, but because when you get into the subtypes, it's easy to forget, even though they look different on the surface, what drives them is the same thing,
Yeah.
right? Their
Yeah.
motivation is coming from the same place. How they express it's different. So maybe talk about the motivation of a four as you know it through your lived experience.
I mean, I think in a healthy way, the motivation of a four is to express themselves. And we are deep feelers and we see the world through feelings.
Mhm.
And we can, I don't know if every four, but like we can sense those feelings in our bodies. So I know I'm not a body type necessarily, but I feel like those feelings go somewhere and we are really in touch with them.
Mhm.
I think also we can be pushed through feeling isolated, alone, always searching for community. Always, I mean, and on the flip side, the positive part about that is like we can be community builders, but we always have to maintain our creativity and our autonomy.
Mhm.
So,
The individualist.
yes, that's very important to be independent and not to have anyone take away our independence. That's why I don't like the four because I don't want to be put in a box.
Which is putting you in a box by not wanting to be in the
Don't
box.
put me in a box.
I'm going to just move so our guests can see. Enneagram 4 is at the bottom, and this is the shadowy side. This is the darker. This is the more sophisticated, nuanced place. 4 plus 5 equals 9. This 9 up here is the lightest energy, right? It's why it's like, so go with the flow. It doesn't mean that that's what it is, but these are just energies. 4 and 5 down here is where the artists come from.
Yeah.
Almost all artists are fours or fives to some degree. Fives, the intellectual artist, a little more cerebral. Four is more of the emotive, kind of stereotypical artist. But I'd like to hear more about hanging out down in the shadowy side of the Enneagram, what it's like down there, maybe what it was like growing up down there. Because there's a great book. If you haven't, I don't think you've read it, but if our listeners haven't read it, it's a good one. It's called Bittersweet
Mm.
by Susan Cain. She wrote Quiet.
Oh, yeah.
And she knows about the Enneagram, and she's a four.
Mm.
And she talks about both in Quiet and in Bittersweet. we don't live in a society that is built for fours.
I would say that's very true. I don't, I think as a child versus who I am now, I'm coming back to some of those pieces.
Hmm.
I enjoyed being more quiet. I couldn't even throw a party if you asked me to. I remember once I tried and I got caught. I wasn't the good time, fun time person. I was never good at being in a big group of people. I kind of got lost in the sea of people. But throw me in front of like two or three people that really like wanted to go deep. It's kind of why I liked you when we first met. It was like, oh my God, somebody understands me. Somebody wants to talk. I
I
remember,
totally didn't.
yes, you did. I remember we were at a Shabbat dinner and it was like, I don't know where I found you, but we started talking and it was like nobody else existed because we went deep. You remember.
Yeah, it was good. Good pickup tactic.
Stop. Okay, anyways. So being a four, like I really didn't consider myself a shadow person in my childhood, but I did like being alone in nature. I was very spiritual without even knowing I was.
Well, I mean, since I know you so well, I would imagine you were always a four. You had that energy. It's not that it really changes over time. It's just that we are in different situations. We're allowed to access it. And I've seen like there are moments of your childhood of being an artist,
Yeah, I was
right?
gonna say I took pottery and I had paintings under my bed and I would come out and paint and draw
But that
and
wasn't really nurtured in you.
that's kind of what I'm feeling is like I found that for myself just because of like the times I grew up in maybe and
Like your dad wanted you to play softball, right?
yeah.
Well, like a lot of dads, nothing, wrong with
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah, no,
you
I
kind of,
loved it.
but I wonder if left to your own devices, you would have found your way to softball, or you would have found your way to dancing or whatever. Like our
Right.
son, who's a four, by the way.
Right. Yeah, I think I probably would have gone into art if I had like my own choice and everything. I probably would have done that. I mean, I was talking to animals when I was little. I felt different. I always felt like I know this is going to sound really fourish and weird, but like so I thought that I thought I was always different, right? I preferred animals to people. I didn't feel understood. I had a lot of friends in high school, but it was really most of my childhood it was like those one or two friends that understood me.
Mhm.
Right? It was very important for me like looking back to feel understood because I never felt truly understood
Except for your animals.
except for my animals.
Well, it's like today, you're like Snow White in our house. Like every time I turn
I
around, like
absolutely
all these creatures are following her around the house. The dog, two cats, maybe a kid. No, probably not the kid. But I imagine, I don't have this connection with animals.
No, you do not.
Um, I imagine it's because you feel understood in a way that's not possible with another person.
I mean, you guys all make fun of me that my dog is my soulmate.
I don't make fun of you. It's sad and tragic to me.
Stop. It's not true. To be understood by an animal, I know you can't understand this because they're scared of you because you're an eight, but to be understood by an animal is like I'm going straight to heaven. Like they already told me. Like it's just I mean also, I'm a little eccentric because of what I do for work, right? So
But all
I
fours are a little eccentric no matter
it's
what they
true.
do for
It's
work.
true. But I mean, I talk to the unseen and animals are not seen, right? They're not people. They can't express needs the way that people can.
But that's my point. Like, I imagine that's always been true, and it wasn't normative, normal,
Yeah.
mainstream, and your family was pretty mainstream. And I imagine that wasn't fostered, encouraged, nurtured. And so you end up, developing other Enneagram numbers that you can do, but aren't necessarily who you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think as I've gotten older, and I think a big thing about fours is like being accepted, right? And like accepting ourselves for who we are because it can feel like so dark in there. And I don't really consider myself a dark person, right? I'm not tragic.
Mhm.
Um,
Self-pres, that's the least tragic of the
yeah,
fours.
I don't feel tragic. But I can get myself into, I mean, I have gotten myself into quite a fear anxious spiral. And I don't know if that's a four thing as well. But I think that the whole point is like understanding who I am and accepting myself for who I am. And that helps me function better in the world.
Well, that's the way forward for a healthy four, and you're a
Right.
responsive four, responsible four, not a reactive four, usually. And that is that nobody will ever understand you.
Right.
Well, nobody can understand us
Except for my dog.
except for you. We can only hope to understand ourselves, and that has to become enough. And your freaking dog. Um, but that longing, this is the sort of the work of a four. There's a longing that it's outside of me, that they have the missing piece. Remember that book, The Missing Piece?
Of course.
And it was like Shel Silverstein book.
Yeah.
Always longing for that missing. I see it in our son, the four,
Yeah.
right? There's this sort of suffering component that's there.
Yeah, I think there is. And I think, the healthy four in me understands who I am better. And I would say for anybody who has a four wing or like tends toward a four, it is a really it's very important to have a daily practice of weeding out the emotions and really understanding how you feel, and because it's like a gardening, right? It's like if you don't pull the weeds overwhelm all the beauty of the garden, and that is the four, right? Your tragic emotions, whether they're tragic or whatever, your perceived emotions and how you think you're being perceived and how you see yourself, you really have to keep that in check. I mean, sometimes it is a full-time job, not as much for me anymore, but I remember like growing up and feeling like there must be something wrong with me. And that is partly why I do what I do for work, is that what I return to is like the home inside of me, right? And that's what I help women do, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. And I do wonder, maybe you can tell me this, because I see the nines are also very spiritual people.
Mhm.
Like fours, at least what I've seen, are also they tend towards spirituality. I have a deep relationship with the divine, and it is kind of like, it's like I need that relationship. I love it. I cherish it, that I don't see in a lot of other numbers.
So 9, 4, and 5 are a part of a triad. We won't get too deep into it, but they're the withdrawing types,
Mm-hmm.
the withdraw into themselves. You can feel when you're around a 9, 4, and 5, they retreat into different aspects. The 9 more physically, 4 more emotionally, 5 more intellectually. But there's a pulling back energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's conserving energy. And so you can feel that sort of, and then they go inwards,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's a natural predilection towards spirituality, or whatever you
Yeah.
want to call that inner exploration that I think is more represented in fours.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's like the major part of who I am, is that has helped me through so many things when I woke up to it at like 23 years old.
Mhm.
Like, oh, there's something outside of me that loves me just the way I am, and that I can have a deep relationship with. That was like my great awakening at 23 years old, to realize like it's not just me in here, me and my thoughts and my feelings and my all my people in here. There is something outside of myself that wants to come in and join me. And for a four, I think it's really important to say, like, we're not alone in here.
So it's called the holy idea, but the sort of pull for each type. And the holy idea of the four is called origin,
Mm,
originality. But the origin, right? Call it source, God, whatever you want to call it. There's this longing to go home. There's this longing for source.
yeah.
And that's the origin, originality. And I need to be original and I need to be special in order to be in that. And so the work of a four is to find it on her own, inside of her or beyond her. And to not go down what Brene Brown calls the shame spiral.
Right.
The word that really, there's two words in my experience, you're a four, you'll tell me, that are sort of north-south pole, yin and yang for fours. One is shame on one extreme, and one is authenticity on the
Hmm.
other extreme. So
Hmm.
tell me about the relationship to shame to authenticity and then shame and authenticity?
So if you're not loved for who you are, it's like, and shame is like a really big spiral that you can go down, right? And so it's important for fours to love themselves and accept themselves and not be ashamed of those, like being, like we said, being too much. But the flip side is really like authenticity is like the most important quality you could ever have. It's
You
why
just light up when you say the
I
word.
love authenticity. I mean, look, I think it's also how we're raised. I don't know if does every four feel this way. I mean, I see Aviv and he pretty much loves it too. I am what you see is what you get. I don't like to hide. I don't like that about other people. It's hard for me. I get uncomfortable. I go into the shame spiral of like, what's wrong with me that this person can't be, because I can sense things. So I know when someone's not being authentic. But sometimes I have to be careful in the four range to not take it on as mine. Oh, I must have done something wrong. Right. I see Aviv doing that too. And sometimes I'll say to him, they're just going through their own stuff. It's not about you. But the more authentic you can be, the better I feel.
So in Enneagram speak, what fours do is called introjection. So when you interject, you put your stuff into other people's realm.
Yeah.
Introjection is fishing, and I'm bringing their shit into mine.
Right.
Right? You see that with Aviv when he comes out of school and he comes into the car and he's telling you about all this terrible suffering stuff. It didn't happen to him. It happened to two other kids. I'm like,
Yes.
I don't give a shit about the other kids. How you doing? Right? But
Right.
now I've learned that that's his way of processing.
Right.
He's taking that drama, that suffering, and can he move through the world just focused on his suffering, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to being that empath or learning how to have boundaries and, you know, ways to keep out what's not really his, but still, live with an open heart, authentic.
It's really, really important as a four to have really good boundaries, because a four, and I see it in Aviv and I see it in myself. I mean, he and I can be really sensitive to other people's energy, right? And we can you can get your feelings hurt, or you can just take on somebody else's sadness. And sometimes you have to really, that's why I think fours need a deep spiritual practice. And it's a daily, it doesn't have to be a long time, but it's a daily kind of cleaning and clearing of your field, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, of, oh, that's not mine. Oh, this is mine. This is theirs. I'm going to stay out of theirs. Right? That's the healthy part of me, is like, oh, now I see it. So that's yours, that's yours, that's yours, that's not mine. And so I can help you with it, but I'm not going to enter into your stuff.
Tell me about fours, feelings, and boundaries, right? Um, Ben Shapiro says facts don't care about your feelings. That's like to a four, that's like
It's not very nice.
not very nice. Are there times though when that needs to be a mantra for a four?
So, yes and no. It's very important if you are a feeler to watch how you react in your feelings. I did that today, and I reacted to something and I had to go back, and it showed that the person didn't read it. So I deleted it on both ends because I
A text?
reacted. No,
Oh, I'll say
no, no,
you didn't delete it.
no, no. It was WhatsApp. But I really saw that I was in an emotional spiral, not a bad one, but I was in one. And it's very, very important to get your facts and to not react to the person who has dumped onto you, and to see the truth. That's the authentic truth. And really discern, is this mine, is it theirs, and is it my emotions, or is it real? Right? And it's not that our emotions aren't real, but I've learned to, honestly, since you kind of brought the Enneagram to our family, I have learned that I can be really reactive to some of the kids, and the way, or you too, and the way that sometimes they respond. And I'm very careful now to come back to equanimity, right? And I know that's not necessarily my number, but it is this like non-feeling place.
It's the virtue of a four is equanimity, right?
Oh,
Right, to find this sort of
yeah, the balance.
the balance between head, heart, action, right? It
Yeah.
can't just be lived in one of those quadrants. Or
Yes, but I will say again, because if anyone's listening to this and you're a four, or you feel like a four, a spiritual practice is essential. Some sort of deep dive, because you're deep diving anyway.
spiritual slash emotional, like, a
Some
journaling
it's a
practice, getting it
combination of
out.
both. Yeah, where yes, you don't have to do a deep dive into God, but a deep dive into here is really
No,
essential.
I imagine most fours are not repulsed by the God idea. Like they're
Hmm.
probably prone to spirituality,
Right.
but it's not. Spirituality can also encompass, an emotional exploration and getting it out,
Right.
right? You just need to get it out sometimes. So for the fours listening and through your experience, what are things, no, for the non-fours listening, what are things you need as a four from the people around you?
I need authenticity.
You have a hard time with sevens. Sevens and fours can be seven, the
Even though
enthusiast.
I can think like a four,
Seven.
sorry, I think like a seven sometimes, like, yeah, let's big ideas and let's go. Ultimately, I come back to my four, right? It's like, we're gonna wait on that, or we're gonna think about that, or so yeah, I do have a hard time also with the inauthenticity that an unhealthy seven can be. I also I like it real and raw and vulnerable, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that in other people. So allowing a four to say, hey, I've got some stuff here. Now, again, it's my job to take care of my own emotions, right? So I think I used to put that on you to fix it. And now I don't want to be fixed. And you do a better job of just like saying, wow, that's hard, or listening, whatever. So I feel heard, I feel understood most of the time. And that's really important for a four to feel like they're seen and heard.
So for all you folks out there raising a four or married to a four, here's what I do. This is a secret. Plug your ears. Can you plug your ears?
Yeah.
Imagine you're holding out a garbage can and
Okay, seriously,
and
that makes me look
and
so overly
and
emotional. Do you want
imagine
to get in a fight on podcast?
that your four is puking.
Stop.
And your job is to hold the garbage can, hold her ponytail, and say, "Is there anything else?
Oh,
Is there anything
okay,
else?"
that's good. That works well with my four. That's good.
That's a
You just
hack.
gained a lot of
I just give a
points.
hack for
It's
the
not a hack.
a quarter century married to a four.
No, no, no. What the four needs is to
Authenticity.
be heard for real.
I really want you to throw this up. No, because it's true. You need to get it out. You do. And that's the point, is that I don't have to fix it. It's actually liberating to me because I can hold the garbage can for a lot longer if I you don't want me to fix it.
Right. I mean, I think the eight in you goes into hyper focus mode of like, okay, well, then let's do this and let's do this. And that is like what people say about men in general. But the eight is like, okay, well, we're going to go and we're going to get them and we're going
Right.
to
So
react. And
so I try to hold the garbage can and let you barf out the emotions and
it's
then
just not nice.
well, I'm sorry, but it's just a known thing in the Enneagram world.
But can I tell you what a healthy four does is that she understands herself or he understands himself. And the key for a healthy four is to be your own processor.
Yes.
It's very, very important. And I think for the last, like, I would say 8 years, I don't actually want to tell you half the things that go on in my head because you don't know how to hold them, but I know how to hold them, right? I am my own authentic parent, my own authentic partner. Like, that's really important for a four to say, wait, I'm not too much. And all those parts in me,
Mhm,
I can hold them.
mhm.
And then I don't need as much from you because you can't really give me everything.
Amen. Thank God. One other thing that I've seen for fours, and I think you've gravitated towards your profession for this reason, Viktor Frankl calls it self-transcendence, right?
Yeah.
Because a four is oriented inward, and there's a danger for nine, fours, and fives, right? The ones I mentioned before, of them losing themselves, going into themselves, behind sort of the castle walls kind of a thing. And to go to other, to help others, to serve others. That's line to the two that you see with the four.
Right.
Can I be of service? Right? And it's very important for fours, nines, and fives to find service oriented outlets.
I agree. I agree. I think you don't want to get caught up in just your stuff, right?
Well,
It's
you
really
see fours lose
important.
themselves, like
Yeah,
Michael Jackson and Prince, and
right.
almost every artist who've killed themselves have been fours because
It's a great legacy.
they just go, but they also create the greatest art. I mean, but you can see how if they withdraw from society, pulling back, right? There's
Yeah.
this disappearing into the darkness.
Yeah, I mean, maybe because I'm a self-pres four or whatever, or the way
You've done a
I'm
lot of
made
work
up. Yeah,
too.
I don't feel that as a four, the full retreat and the darkness and like I wouldn't. I mean, you didn't ask this, and I'm sure you know. Like I wouldn't contemplate leaving this earth. It's more of for me. It's like what I have to I am very service oriented now, and it's like what if that didn't get out there, right? That is like more of the four of like that need, that longing for that, but and to help others. But I don't retreat as far down. I'm sure other fours do, but I don't have that
No, but as
darkness.
a four, you do have tendencies towards sort of, if I'm not understood, forget it, right? And your son has this, right? They can't understand me, so I'm just not going to try. Sort of a pulling back, a taking your ball and going away. And that's
Yeah.
still the retreat. It's not as dark as, Prince, but there is a pulling back energy. It's very hard when a four, and you see this with your daughter who's a nine too, like when
Yeah, it's
she's in
like you
retreat
try to
mode,
pull her
it's
out.
a turtle, and it's really hard to get to the fours and the nines.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like, I really resonate with a nine in some ways. Like sometimes my eight comes out and like you would never think I could resonate with a nine, but I think that there is a retreat that happens. It's just not as dark as maybe other fours, but there is definitely like my self-pres part really goes like that suffering. That's a big one. Like I'm working on that actively of like, you know, you would never know if I was suffering because I'm not going to tell you I'm
Right.
suffering, but the inside of me is suffering on whatever that is. And that is very important for a four to not live in a sense of suffering, either external suffering or
Or
internal.
martyrdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's called the Stoic, right? And
Right.
Stoicism can be great. You bear your burden, but it can also be a reactive, I can carry this and
Yeah.
bear the cross kind of a
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, sometimes it's a one for me. It's like, this is my absolute. And even if I die doing it, I'm going to do it.
Mhm.
And that's the part I've had to kind of soften. Like I don't know what I don't know, but if I just stand in this camp over here and say, nope, I'm going to just retreat and I'm going to be stoic about it, it hurts me in the end and it's not healthy. Right. So it is softening those edges a little bit and coming back into the center.
So the world needs fours. They are creative juice. They are beauty. They appreciate beauty, the aesthetics. They are emotional, empaths with so much to offer us vis-a-vis their hearts, accessing our hearts. Anything else you want to say about your brothers and sisters before we sign off?
No, I wish them well. It's not an easy number, but to remember not to go down the hole, right? And to create a practice for themselves to nurture themselves, be there for themselves. I think that is my number one advice.
And you are worthy, you are special because you are you, not because of anything that you express or don't
Right.
express, right? You are an original,
Yes.
and you are an original, Ariela.
Thank you, Baruch.
Have a great night.
I'll see you at home.
Take care.